Nick Fuentes can only dream of being able to cause this much racial difference between two groups of people. Richard Spencer can only dream of being able to ferment this level of racism between whites and blacks.
Well, you heard it from the horse's mouth. Asmongold sitting there saying that Nick Fuentes and Richard Spencer could only dream of trying to racially divide or make a divide along racial lines. The same way that this just general story is playing out. The rest of the clip goes into a bit more detail with Asmongold, but the thing of note here, and why I'm actually attaching this clip to what I'm about to play, is because earlier today, the father of Austin Metcalf tried to go to the press conference that they were having for Karmelo Anthony. I would imagine just to be in good graces. Obviously, this big event happened. You had the father who he got backlash early on because he apologized so quickly. A lot of people didn't enjoy that aspect of him, but a lot of Christians came out and said, hey, that's probably the right thing to do. He probably have a hard time grieving, doesn't really know what to do, processing a lot of things. So I agree with that. But the news, and I don't want to bury the headline, is that the Dominique Alexander and the family of Karmelo Anthony kicked out and held off on having their press conference until Austin Metcalf's father was removed from the grounds. This obviously is, I think, one of the latest scummy things to have come from this case, following the merchandise supposedly being sold with t-shirts with his face on there, and alongside the conflicting reports we have of this give, set, and go money and buying a new home and an Escalade and shoes. But before I continue and embark on mine, here's the rest of the Asmongold clip.
So yeah, I don't want to turn into a race issue. I just want the bad people who hurt innocents to get punished. Yeah, exactly. So you guys are just letting murderers out on bail? Unironically, yes. Unironically, we are going and letting murderers out on bail. And I want to let you guys know that this has caused Nick Fuentes can only dream of being able to cause this much racial difference between two groups of people. Richard Spencer can only dream of being able to ferment this level of racism between whites and blacks. This goes beyond any of these racial instigators or any of this. This is a million times worse. Johnny Somali. Hey, do you see what I'm saying? Because foment, not ferment. You're right. Foment. I used the wrong word. That's what I think. The optics are bad. The optics are horrible. Luigi's rotting in jail, but not this guy. That's a great point. That's actually a great point. Holy shit, what a good point. Why is this guy not in jail, but Luigi is? But Luigi was premeditated. So was him. Who brings a knife to a track meet? Who says, touch me and see what happens? That's premeditation, in my opinion. It is. The Joker was right. Yeah. So we let Luigi out? For the sake of my YouTube channel, that would be the best outcome. But no, I think we keep both of them.
What I will say is I don't have the answer. I don't even begin to know what the solution is that we can completely heal from whatever this divide is. But what I can tell you is the current track we're going about it, and the current this idea of this multiculturalism and in the experiment of how it's playing out right now is clearly failing. And I think what we can at least take away from all of this is that this pretended, this PC culture, this don't believe your lying eyes can only carry us so far. And just like how I had talked about on the Jar Openers podcast, and many people who probably watch this show can agree that the younger generation, when they see it and they can see the content and what's being said, and by the younger Gen Z kids, the younger men, it's clear that like they're not going to play by the same rules that the boomers did. They're not going to sit here and ignore and give every single benefit of the doubt to a black individual because of the slavery event that happened years ago that they never were a part of, that they never saw, especially when they grow up in a period of what I would consider things to be black privilege, when every institution bends over backwards with DEI programs out the woozah for you to have a way of life. Now, I add this video in comparison to what I'm about to play, which is going to be a minute clip of the press conference that occurred, where they again, Dominique Alexander, the spokesperson for Karmelo Anthony, goes on a tirade about how it was so disrespectful that the father even have the audacity to show up to this press conference. And they're convoluting this entire narrative, which I think is adding to the fact that it's going on racialized lines, that in some way, shape, or form, that Karmelo Anthony is the victim in all of this. And that the greatest crime that's happening is that there's people who are posting nonstop about this story. Now, I think that there are issues with people posting about it and the kind of runaway misinformation. Obviously, I think that with the Gifts and Ghost story, we don't know all the details there. But the overall optics, just like Asmon said, are brutal. But here's the clip of them dismayed that the father even deemed or dared to show his face at the press conference. Here it is.
And all I'm going to say, so it don't be asked later, is that was disrespectful and just shows you all the character who was not invited. He knows that it's inappropriate to be near this family, but he did it. And so I say to people, actions speak louder than words. Okay? What he has failed into is the political operatives that want to make this thing a political thing of hate, yet bigotry, and yet racism. We have conservative operatives that have been posting nonstop about this case.
So in the end, not hard to understand why this clip is going to start circulating. It's going to be doing the news cycle rounds, but you have people commenting like Charlie Kirk saying this is revolting, Matt Walsh coming in and saying, I didn't think it could get more scummy than this. And I agree, which is going back to what I thought we were going to get when Scott Adams had his kind of, breakthrough moment with when he said, I don't want to live around them anymore, which is we need a better conversation about this topic. Now, whether you think it's Black culture, you think it's down to race, you think it's the content of their character, whatever, I don't even care anymore. All I care about is that we stop living in this weird kind of act, this theater, this plague that we do, where we all pretend no one sees that there's one specific group of people that are doing things at an exceptional rate, right? The 13% committing 50 to 55% and nothing being done about it. And then at the same time, while nothing's happening, these people still getting every single lick of benefit of the doubt being given to them, and these situations continually happening. Again, I don't know what the solution is, but I can definitely tell you what we're doing right now is not working. We need to do better. There needs to be a more full open discourse about race, but how do you do that when people can't handle the most slightest critiques before they start screaming, crashing out over racism? I don't know, but I can tell you what, the longer that we ignore it, I sure as hell can tell you the more we're going to see violence. Let me know what you think with this latest development. I'm really just trying not to be black-pilled on this whole conversation. I'm trying to just hope that there's a way we can get around it. Hope that we can kind of get more, the tokenism right. Maybe we can get more people inside the Black community who will say things that will be meaningful to get people to maybe change their kind of perception of this conversation, of what the actual issues are. I just don't know, but I tell you what, I get really tired of seeing people lose their lives over something stupid like that. But in the end, again, comment, like. I appreciate it if you made it this far. Thank you very much. Let me know what you think, what you think the solution is. And one last thing before I go. We are running the Jar Openers podcast. That is actually, we're doing well. We had another video hit the algorithm, if you will. You can find that at the Jar Openers podcast on YouTube. Me and Worrell, that we run that from Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we would appreciate it if you stop by. But with that, let's hope these things can continue to improve. Otherwise, I think we're in for a wild ride, especially for this coming year and this coming summer. So with that, take care. I'll see you in the next one.